Unipark stepped off the shuttle and took her first breath of Velthari air. It smelled like copper and pine. Strange, but not bad. She pulled her bag over her shoulder and looked up at the diplomatic compound. The building was massive. Everything here was massive. It had to be. The Velthari were not small creatures. A guard stood at the gate. He was 8 feet tall with dark green scales and claws that could tear through metal. His yellow eyes looked down at Yuna like she was an insect. She smiled and waved. The guard did not wave back. "Human liaison, Yuna Park," she said, holding up her identification card. "I am here for the 2-year cultural exchange program." The guard sniffed the air near her. His nostrils flared. Then he stepped aside and let her pass. Yuna had studied the Velthari for 3 years before this assignment. She knew their history, their language, their customs. They were apex predators. Their ancestors had hunted across their planet for millions of years before building cities. They valued strength above all else. Weakness was shameful. Dependence was worse. She also knew that most humans lasted about 1 week here before requesting a transfer. The Velthari did not try to make guests comfortable. Comfort was for prey. Yuna did not plan to leave in 1 week. She planned to stay the full 2 years. She had come too far to give up now. A Velthari officer met her inside the compound. He was even larger than the guard. His scales were dark red, almost black, and old scars covered his arms. This was Commander Sarath. Yuna recognized him from her briefing files. He was a war hero. He had led armies. He had killed more enemies than most soldiers ever saw. He was also a single father of 3 young cubs. "You are smaller than I expected," Sarath said. His voice was deep and rough. "Most humans are small," Yuna replied. "We make up for it in other ways." Sarath made a sound that might have been a laugh, or a growl. Yuna could not tell. "You will stay in the family wing. My cubs are curious about humans. Do not bore them, or they may eat you." Yuna blinked. "Is that a joke?" "Velthari do not joke." He turned and walked away. Yuna followed, wondering if she had made a terrible mistake. The family wing was at the back of the compound. It was quieter here. Yuna could hear birds outside the windows, or something like birds. The sounds they made were too deep, too strange. She tried not to think about what Velthari birds might look like. Sarath showed her to a small room. The bed was too big for her. The ceiling was too high. But it was clean and private, and that was enough. "My cubs will find you," Sarath said from the doorway. "They always do." Then he was gone. Yuna unpacked her bags and tried to settle in. She had brought books, research equipment, and a small file kit for field work. She placed everything neatly on the shelves. Then she sat on the enormous bed and waited. She did not wait long. 3 pairs of yellow eyes appeared in her doorway. 3 small Velthari cubs stood there, watching her. They were small only by Velthari standards. The largest one was already as tall as Yuna. "Hello," Yuna said gently. "My name is Yuna. What are your names?" The cubs said nothing. They just stared at her. Then, as quickly as they had appeared, they vanished. Yuna heard claws clicking on stone as they ran away. She smiled. Cubs were cubs, no matter the species. Over the next few days, Yuna settled into a routine. She ate meals in the common hall. She attended meetings with Velthari officials. She took notes on everything she saw. And always, always, she felt eyes watching her. The cubs followed her everywhere. They hid behind pillars. They crouched in shadows. They thought they were being sneaky. Yuna pretended not to notice. She learned their names from listening to the compound staff. The largest was Ron. He was 6 years old and very proud. He walked like his father and tried to growl like his father. He was not very good at it yet. The 2 smaller cubs were twins. Kira was quiet and watchful. She noticed everything. Her brother Tavik was the opposite. He was loud and wild and always moving. He broke things often. They called Yuna the soft one when they thought she could not hear. She did not mind. It was true. She was soft. She had no claws, no fangs, no scales. By Velthari standards, she was helpless. But Yuna had learned long ago that there were many kinds of strength. One morning, she sat on the compound steps to tie her running shoes. It was a simple thing. She did it every day without thinking. Loop, pull, tighten, loop, pull, tighten. She hummed a song from her childhood as she worked. She did not know that Kira was watching from behind a pillar. The small cub stared at Yuna's hands. She watched the fingers move in strange patterns. The human was touching her own feet. She was grooming her foot coverings. Slowly. Carefully. With great focus. Kira did not understand. Among her people, grooming was done by parents. Cubs learned to groom themselves by age 4. Only the very young or the very sick needed help. Only the abandoned went ungroomed. But this human had no one. She was alone here, and she was grooming herself like it was normal. That night, Kira found her brothers in their sleeping den. Her tail was low. Her eyes were troubled. "The human tends to herself," she whispered. "She has no one to groom her." Ron frowned. "That is strange. That is sad," Tavik said. For once, he was not bouncing. He sat very still. The 3 cubs looked at each other. They had been taught that humans were strange and weak, but they had not been taught that humans were lonely. Something in their young hearts shifted. They would watch the soft one more closely now. Tavik could not stop thinking about the human. 3 days had passed since Kira told them about the grooming. 3 days of watching. 3 days of wondering. The soft one went about her life as if nothing was wrong. She smiled at everyone. She took notes in her little book. She tied her foot coverings every morning. It was driving Tavik mad. He needed to do something. He was not like Ron, who could wait and watch forever. He was not like Kira, who could sit in silence for hours. Tavik was a creature of action. When something bothered him, he faced it directly. So on the 4th morning, he made a plan. Yuna was walking through the garden when Tavik jumped out from behind a bush. He landed in front of her and spread his arms wide. His claws were fully extended. Each one was as long as Yuna's finger. "Human!" he shouted. "Look at my claws!" Yuna stopped walking. She looked at the small cub blocking her path. He was breathing hard. His scales were puffed up with excitement. He looked very fierce and very young. "Good morning, Tavik," she said calmly. "Those are very impressive claws." Tavik blinked. She knew his name? He shook his head and focused on his mission. "You will inspect them, now." "Inspect them?" "Yes." Tavik pushed his claws closer to her face. "Tell me if they are good." Yuna understood. This was a test. The cub wanted to see what she would do. Would she run away in fear? Would she refuse to touch him? Many humans might have done either, but Yuna was not most humans. She knelt down so she was at eye level with Tavik. Slowly, gently, she took his small, clawed hand in hers. Tavik went very still. No one had touched his claws in years. He was supposed to care for them himself. That was the Velthari way. But the human did not seem to know this. She turned his hand this way and that, looking at each claw carefully. Her touch was soft. Her fingers were warm. "These are strong claws," she said. "You take good care of them." Tavik felt a strange warmth in his chest. He tried to ignore it. Then Yuna frowned. She looked more closely at his 3rd claw. "Oh, you have a small crack here. Does this one catch on things?" Tavik's eyes went wide. How did she know? That claw had been bothering him for weeks. It snagged on his sleeping furs. It caught on his clothes. He had tried to fix it himself, but he did not know how. "Sometimes," he admitted quietly. Yuna reached into her bag. She pulled out a small metal tool. It looked like a flat stick with rough surfaces. "This is called a file," she said. "May I fix your claw?" Tavik did not know what to say. No one had offered to groom him since he was 3 years old. It was shameful to accept help. It was weak. His father would be disappointed. But his claw really did bother him. And the human was looking at him with such kind eyes. "Fine," he muttered. "But only because you asked." Yuna smiled. She did not laugh at him or make him feel small. She simply took his claw and began to work. The file made a soft sound as it moved across his claw. Back and forth, back and forth. Yuna worked slowly and carefully. She smoothed the crack. She filed the rough edges. She made the claw strong and clean again. Tavik watched in silence. He had never felt anything like this. It did not hurt. It felt nice. Safe. Like being a very small cub again, curled up with his mother. He did not have those memories. His mother had died when he was 1 year old. He had only heard stories, but he imagined it felt something like this. "There," Yuna said finally. She let go of his hand. "All done. How does it feel?" Tavik flexed his claws. The third one moved smoothly. It did not catch or snag. It was perfect. He opened his mouth to say, "Thank you." Then he remembered he was a fierce Velthari warrior cub. He closed his mouth, turned around, and ran away as fast as he could. Yuna watched him go. She was smiling. That night, Tavik slept better than he had in months. His claws did not catch on his sleeping furs. He did not wake up frustrated and angry. He slept deep and long and woke up feeling peaceful. He did not tell his brother and sister what the human had done. He kept it secret, like a treasure. But secrets are hard to keep when you share a sleeping den. Kira noticed first. "Your claws look different," she said at breakfast. "They are shinier." Ron looked too. His eyes narrowed. "Did you groom them?" "I did not," Tavik said. This was true. He had not groomed them himself. "Then who did?" Tavik said nothing. He stuffed food in his mouth so he would not have to answer. But Kira was the most observant cub in the compound. She watched her brother all morning. She saw how he kept looking at his claws. She saw how he kept glancing toward the human's room. She understood. That evening, Kira found Ron in the training yard. He was practicing his hunting stance. He was very serious about practice. "The human fixed Tavik's claws," Kira said. Ron stopped practicing. "What?" "She has a tool. She made his claws smooth and strong." Ron looked at his own claws. They were fine. He groomed them himself every week. But there was a rough spot on his longest claw that he could never quite fix. It had been there for months. "Show me," he said. The next morning, Yuna was eating breakfast in the meal hall when 2 small shadows fell over her table. She looked up. Ron and Kira stood before her. They looked nervous. They looked embarrassed. They looked everywhere except at her face. Slowly, without saying a word, they extended their claws toward her. Yuna understood immediately. She did not ask questions. She did not make them explain. She simply put down her food, reached into her bag, and pulled out her file. "Sit down," she said gently. "Let me see." The cubs sat. Yuna took Ron's hand first. She examined each claw. She found the rough spot and filed it smooth. Ron made a small sound in his throat. It might have been a purr. Then she took Kira's hands. Kira's claws were smaller but sharper. Yuna worked carefully, filing each one until they gleamed. When she was done, both cubs looked at their claws in wonder. They had never looked so good. They had never felt so right. "Thank you," Kira whispered. It was the first time she had spoken to Yuna directly. "You are welcome," Yuna said. "Come back any time." The cubs looked at each other. Then they looked at Yuna. Something had changed. They were not sure what. But they knew things would be different now. They ran off to find Tavik. They had much to discuss. The ritual began without anyone planning it. On the first morning, only Tavik came. He arrived at Yuna's door before the sun rose. He did not knock. He simply walked in, sat on the floor, and extended his claws. Yuna, still half asleep, reached for her file without question. On the second morning, Kira came too. She sat beside her brother in perfect silence. She waited her turn with great patience. On the third morning, Ron joined them. He was the oldest, so he insisted on going first. Tavik complained. Kira rolled her eyes. Yuna filed all their claws while they argued about the order. By the end of the first week, the cubs had agreed on a system. They sat in a row on Yuna's floor, largest to smallest. Ron first, then Tavik, then Kira. They arrived every morning before dawn. They left before the compound woke up. No one saw them. No one knew. It was their secret. Yuna found that she loved these quiet mornings. The cubs pretended not to enjoy the grooming. Ron stared at the wall like he was bored. Tavik fell asleep, sitting up. Kira's tail twitched in a way that Yuna had learned meant happiness. She hummed old songs from Earth while she worked. She did not know if the cubs liked the music. They never said anything, but they never told her to stop. Sometimes she talked to them. She told them about Earth, about oceans and forests and cities full of humans. The cubs listened with wide eyes. They had never seen an ocean. They had never seen a forest with green leaves. Their world was red and rocky and dry. "Do humans have claws?" Kira asked one morning. Yuna showed them her fingernails. The cubs were horrified. "Those are useless," Ron said. "They are very small," Yuna agreed. "We use tools instead." Tavik grabbed her hand and examined her nails closely. "They are soft like the rest of you. How do you survive?" "We are clever," Yuna said, "and we take care of each other." The cubs thought about this. On their world, strength was everything. The strong survived, the weak did not. But humans were weak, and they survived anyway. They built ships that crossed the stars. They made tools that could do anything claws could do. Maybe strength was not the only way. 2 weeks passed, then 3. The morning ritual continued. The cubs' claws had never looked better. They gleamed in the light. They cut clean and sharp. Other Velthari in the compound began to notice. "Your claws look excellent," a training master told Ron one day. "You have become skilled at grooming." Ron nodded seriously. He did not tell the truth. He let everyone think he had done it himself. But not everyone was fooled. Commander Sarath watched his children carefully. He was a warrior. He was trained to notice small details. And lately there were many small details to notice. His cubs were different. Ron no longer started fights at breakfast. Tavik completed his training without a single tantrum. Kira was asking strange questions about human customs. All 3 of them disappeared every morning before dawn and returned looking peaceful and content. Something was happening. Sarath did not know what. He began to investigate. He asked the guards if they had seen anything unusual. They had not. He asked the servants if the cubs were behaving strangely. They said the cubs were actually behaving better than usual. He asked the training masters if there were any problems. They said the cubs were more focused than ever. It made no sense. His children were wild creatures. They had been wild since the day they were born. Now, suddenly, they were calm and well-groomed and happy. There was only one thing that had changed in the compound recently: the human. Sarath decided to confront her. He found Yuna in the meal hall one morning. She was eating something from Earth. It looked soft and brown and strange. Sarath did not understand human food. "Human," he said, standing over her table, "what have you done to my offspring?" Yuna looked up at him. She did not seem afraid. Most creatures were afraid of Sarath. He was very large and very scarred and very famous for killing things. But this small human just blinked at him with calm eyes. "Good morning, Commander," she said. Would you like to sit down? I would like answers. Then you should probably sit down. It is a long story. Sarath did not want to sit. He wanted to stand and be intimidating. But the human was looking at him with patience, and somehow that made him feel foolish. He sat down. Your cubs come to my room every morning, Yuna said simply. I file their claws. Sarath stared at her. You what? I file their claws. I have a tool that smooths rough edges and removes cracks. It makes the claws stronger and more comfortable. That is grooming. Yes. Sarath's mind raced. Among his people, grooming was intimate. It was something done by family. To accept grooming from an outsider was strange. To accept grooming from an alien was unheard of. Why would they allow this? He demanded. Yuna was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was gentle. I think they were lonely. I think they wanted someone to take care of them. And I think they were too proud to ask. Sarath felt something twist in his chest. His children's mother had died when they were very young. He had raised them alone. He had taught them to be strong and independent. He had never thought that maybe they needed something else. They are warriors, he said, but his voice was not as strong as before. They are children, Yuna replied. Even warriors need care sometimes. Sarath did not know what to say. He stood up and left without another word. That night, he watched his cubs more closely than ever. He saw how they smiled at each other. He saw how their claws caught the light, perfect and gleaming. He saw how Kira drew pictures of a small figure with no claws. He saw how happy they were. The next morning, before dawn, Sarath stood outside Yuna's door. He could hear his cubs inside. He could hear them arguing about who would go first. He could hear the soft sound of the file against their claws. He did not go inside. He was not ready for that, but he stood there for a long time listening. And for the first time since his wife died, Commander Sarath felt something like hope. The visitors came without warning. Commander Drath and his clan arrived at the compound on a cold morning. Their ships landed in the courtyard with fire and smoke. Their warriors marched out in perfect lines. They wore black armor and carried weapons that gleamed in the pale light. Drath was an old rival of Sarath. They had fought together in the wars. They had also fought against each other more than once. Drath was cruel and proud. He believed that power was everything. He believed that kindness was weakness. He had come to discuss a trade agreement, but Yuna could tell from the first moment that he had come for something else, too. He had come to cause trouble. Drath brought his son with him. The boy was called Vorn. He was 8 years old, already as tall as his father's waist, already trained in combat. His scales were black like his father's. His eyes were cold. Vorn looked at Ron, Tavik, and Kira like they were insects. He looked at Yuna like she was less than an insect. So this is the famous human, Drath said during the welcome feast. He did not hide the mockery in his voice. I heard that Sarath keeps a pet now. Sarath's claws dug into the table. But he said nothing. There were rules about hospitality. Even enemies must be treated well under one's roof. She is not a pet, Ron said loudly. She is our human. Drath laughed. It was not a kind laugh. Your human? Like a toy? How sweet. How soft. How very weak. Tavik stood up so fast his chair fell over. His scales were puffed with rage. His claws were out. She is not weak. Take that back. Vorn stepped forward. He was taller than Tavik. He was older than Tavik. He smiled with too many teeth. Make me, little cub. Enough, Sarath commanded. His voice filled the room. Everyone fell silent. But the damage was done. The insult had been spoken. Among the Velthari, such things could not be ignored. That night, Tavik could not sleep. He paced his room like a caged animal. His claws clicked on the stone floor. His heart burned with anger. Kira found him near midnight. You are thinking of challenging Vorn, she said. "He insulted Yuna. He is bigger than you. I do not care." Kira was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I will tell Ron. He will want to help." Tavik shook his head. "No. This is my fight. Vorn insulted her in front of me. I must answer." He did not sleep at all that night. In the morning, Tavik went to the training yard. Vorn was there, practicing with his father's warriors. He moved with skill. He moved with power. He looked unbeatable. Tavik walked up to him and spoke the ancient words. "I challenge you to a match of claws. First blood or surrender. Do you accept?" Vorn looked down at him with amusement. "You? The little cub with the pet human? This will be easy." "Do you accept?" Tavik repeated. "I accept." Word spread quickly. By noon, the entire compound had gathered around the training yard. Sarath stood with his arms crossed. His face showed nothing, but his claws were digging into his own arms. Drath stood beside him, smiling with satisfaction. "Your cub will learn a hard lesson today," Drath said. Sarath did not reply. Yuna stood at the edge of the crowd. Ron and Kira found her there. They stood on either side of her, their small bodies pressed against hers. "He is fighting for you," Kira whispered. "He is fighting because Vorn called you weak." Yuna felt her heart squeeze. She wanted to stop this. She wanted to tell Tavik it did not matter what Drath said. But she knew that would only make things worse. This was the Velthari way. Honor had to be defended. The match began. Vorn attacked first. He was fast and strong. His claws swept through the air like blades. Tavik dodged and ducked and rolled. He was smaller, but he was quick. He had trained hard. He did not give up. But Vorn was better. Everyone could see it. He pushed Tavik back step by step. He landed hits that made the crowd wince. Tavik was bleeding from a cut on his arm. Another cut opened on his shoulder. Yuna grabbed Kira's hand. Kira grabbed Ron's. They watched together, barely breathing. Then something changed. Vorn swung his claws in a wide arc, aiming for Tavik's face. Tavik raised his arm to block. The claws met with a sound like metal on metal. Vorn's claws scraped across Tavik's without catching. They slid away, deflected. Vorn's eyes went wide with surprise. He swung again. The same thing happened. His claws could not find purchase. They slipped and slid like they were hitting ice. Because Vorn's claws were rough. They were cracked in places. They had not been properly cared for in months. When they struck Tavik's claws, they caught and chipped. But Tavik's claws were perfect, smooth, strong, filed by careful hands every morning. They cut clean when they needed to cut. They blocked true when they needed to block. Tavik saw his chance. He ducked under Vorn's next swing and raked his claws across the older boy's practice shield. The claws cut through the hard leather like it was paper. Vorn stumbled back, shocked. Tavik did not stop. He pressed forward. His claws moved in a blur. He struck Vorn's shield again and again. Each strike cut deeper. Each strike drove the older boy back. Finally, Tavik's claws found their mark. A thin line of red appeared on Vorn's arm. First blood. The match was over. The crowd was silent. No one could believe what they had seen. The smaller cub had won. The smaller cub had beaten a warrior trained by Commander Drath himself. Drath's face was dark with anger. He stormed forward and grabbed his son's arm. "What weapon did you use?" he demanded, staring at Tavik. "What trick is this?" Sarath stepped between them. His voice was calm, but there was a smile in his eyes. "No trick, no weapon, just human grooming techniques." Drath stared at him. "What?" Sarath did not explain. He turned and walked to where Tavik stood. The young cub was shaking with exhaustion. Blood ran down his arm, but his eyes were bright with victory. Sarath put a hand on his son's shoulder. "You fought well," he said quietly. It was the highest praise he had ever given. That night, After Drath and his clan left in angry silence, Sarath stood outside Yuna's door. His children were already inside, celebrating with their human. He could hear Tavik telling the story of his victory for the 5th time. He could hear Kira and Ron adding details he had missed. Sarath looked down at his own claws. They were strong and sharp, but there were rough spots, ridges that caught on his command console, cracks he had ignored for years. Slowly, he knocked on the door. When Yuna opened it, she did not look surprised to see him. She just stepped aside and let him in. Sarath extended his claw. He did not meet her eyes. "The left one catches on my command console," he muttered. Yuna smiled and pulled out her file. "Sit down, Commander. I have been expecting you." The morning ritual grew beyond the small room. It started slowly. A junior officer walked past Yuna's door one morning and saw the commander sitting inside. He saw Yuna filing the commander's claws with her small tool. He saw the 3 cubs waiting their turn. The officer said nothing. But he told his friend. His friend told another friend. By the end of the week, everyone in the compound knew. At first, Yuna expected trouble. She expected the Velthari to be angry or ashamed. She expected them to mock their commander for accepting grooming from a human. But that is not what happened. Instead, they came to her. The first one was a young soldier with a cracked claw she had been hiding for months. She appeared at Yuna's door one evening, looking at the floor. "I heard you can fix these," she said quietly. Yuna fixed it. The next day, 2 more soldiers came, then 3, then 5. The compound cook showed up with a claw that had been bothering him for years. A grizzled old veteran arrived with talons so rough they looked like tree bark. He sat in Yuna's room with his eyes closed while she worked, and when she finished, he patted her head gently with his massive hand. "Good human," he said. Then he walked away. Yuna was not sure if she should be honored or offended. She decided to be honored. The cubs watched all of this with growing possessiveness. These were their mornings. This was their human. They did not like sharing. "We were here first," Ron complained one day, glaring at a line of soldiers outside the door. "You are always first," Yuna assured him. "The morning ritual is just for you. Everyone else has to wait until afternoon." This made the cubs happy. They sat in their usual row, largest to smallest, and pretended not to care when the others watched through the window. Months passed. The seasons changed. Yuna's 2-year assignment was coming to an end. She had not thought about it much. There was always so much to do, so many claws to file, so many reports to write, so many evenings spent with 3 cubs who had somehow become the center of her world. But one morning, the compound administrator reminded her. "Your ship leaves in 30 days, he said. "You should begin preparing your final reports." 30 days. Yuna felt something cold settle in her stomach. She had known this would come. She had always known. But knowing and feeling were different things. That evening, the cubs sensed something was wrong. They always sensed when Yuna was troubled. They had grown skilled at reading her soft human expressions. "What is wrong?" Kira asked. Yuna tried to smile. "Nothing. I am just tired." But they knew she was lying. Cubs were cubs, and cubs always knew when adults were not telling the truth. Ron cornered his father that night. "The human is leaving," he said. It was not a question. Sarath sighed. "Her assignment ends in 30 days. Then extend it." "It is not that simple, my son." "Make it simple." Ron's voice cracked. He was 12 now, almost an adult, but in that moment he sounded like the small cub who had first extended his claws to a strange human so many years ago. "She is ours. We chose her. You cannot let her go." Sarath looked at his son for a long moment. Then he looked at the other 2 cubs hiding poorly behind the door. Tavik's eyes were wet. Kira was gripping the doorframe so hard her claws left marks. They had lost their mother when they were babies. They barely remembered her. But they remembered every moment with their human, every morning ritual, every song she hummed, every story she told about oceans and forests and cities full of soft creatures who took care of each other. She was the closest thing to a mother they had ever known. Serath made a decision. He went to the High Council that very night. He walked into their chamber without an appointment, without preparation, without any of the careful politics that usually governed such things. "I am requesting an indefinite extension for the human liaison," he said. The council members looked at him with surprise. "On what grounds?" "Cultural importance. She has improved relations with the human government. She has taught our people new grooming techniques. She has..." He paused. "She has become family to my children." The council was silent. Among the Velthari, family was sacred. To claim someone as family was no small thing. The eldest council member leaned forward. "You understand what you are saying, Commander? You are asking us to make a human a permanent part of our world." "I understand. This has never been done before. Then it will be done now." The council voted that night. The decision was not even close. When Yuna woke the next morning, she found Serath standing in her doorway. The cubs were behind him, vibrating with barely contained excitement. "Your assignment has been extended," Serath said. "Indefinitely." Yuna stared at him. "What?" "The High Council approved it last night. You will stay as long as you wish to stay." He paused, and his voice softened. "My children have chosen you. Among our kind, that is no small thing." Yuna looked past him at the three cubs. They were trying so hard to look calm and fierce. They were failing completely. Kira's tail was wagging. Tavik was bouncing on his feet. Even Ron had a smile tugging at his mouth. They had chosen her. She had chosen them too. Years later, Yuna finally returned to Earth for a visit. She did not go alone. 3 fully grown Velthari warriors insisted on coming with her. They said it was for protection. They said Earth was dangerous for soft creatures. They said she needed guards. Everyone knew the real reason. They simply could not bear to be separated from their human. The spaceport on Earth was crowded with travelers. Humans rushed past in every direction, busy with their small lives. Most of them did not notice the 3 massive aliens walking behind a small woman. But some noticed. A child stopped and stared. His eyes went wide at the sight of scales and claws and teeth. "Mama," he whispered loudly. "Are those the scary aliens from the news?" His mother tried to hush him, but Ron had heard. The great warrior crouched down slowly. He was 8 feet tall and covered in battle scars. His claws could cut through steel. His teeth could crush bone. He extended one perfect gleaming claw toward the child. "Our human taught us grooming," he said solemnly. "Would you like to see?" The child's mother fainted. Yuna sighed and pulled out her file. Tavik was already laughing. Kira was trying to help the fallen woman. Ron was showing the now fascinated child how smooth his claws were. This was her family. Loud, strange, terrifying to strangers, and completely, utterly hers. She would not trade them for anything in the universe. As they walked out of the spaceport together, Tavik leaned down and bumped his head gently against Yuna's shoulder. It was a Velthari gesture of affection. He had done it every day since he was 5 years old. "Are you happy to be home?" he asked. Yuna looked at the cubs who had become her children. She thought about the mornings spent filing claws. She thought about the songs she had hummed and the stories she had told. She thought about the choice she had made years ago to stay with the creatures who needed her. "I am home," she said, and she meant it.